Today, I have an opportunity to speak with two individuals who have created a beautiful organization. Tamara Ramirez is an advocate for healing and hope. Tamara brings her years as a hospice nurse, caring for those dealing with grief, suffering, and death, as she seeks to create restorative spaces for healthcare professionals by reminding them of their true purpose in life. Phyllis Morton is a lifelong nurse and spiritual director. Phyllis has woven together decades of healthcare experience with her passion for nurturing the soul. Through retreats, coaching, and mission work, she walks beside others, especially those in healthcare, helping them find restoration, meaning, and joy in their calling. Together, they've created Code U. Code U is a nonprofit organization offering holistic, spiritually grounded retreats, virtual gatherings, and coaching designed to renew and support the emotional, spiritual, and physical well being of nurses facing burnout, compassion fatigue, and moral injury. What inspired you to begin this work, or what need were you responding to?
So it was 2020, and Phyllis and I are both nurses and spiritual directors. And we began to witness firsthand the toll the pandemic was taking on bedside nurses. We saw how nurses we knew were beginning to feel isolated, discouraged, and overwhelmed. Something that kind of still is around today. Maybe it's always been, but it was really heightened at that time. We saw that nurses, their hearts were hardening from compassion fatigue and burnout. We would even say their souls were crying out. And we saw this from nurses telling us, I can't even hear the buzzing of the machine anymore. I can't, I'm just so exhausted. Now, the truth is, Phyllis and I had both experienced, after long nursing careers, severe exhaustion, burnout, and compassion fatigue. But this was something different. And we wanted to figure out a way that we could be a part of offering care during the pandemic. We also knew that we couldn't go directly to the bedside. We didn't quite have the skills. They didn't really want us there anymore, I'm sure. We were not it had been a while since we were bedside nurse, but we could offer care, we knew, in another way. So we began connecting with nurses one-on-one. We did this through spiritual direction, which is a way of just sitting with people as they work things out with God, or maybe their own purpose and meaning. And we offered just a simple, safe place for listening and reflection and healing. From there, we moved to offering small groups where nurses could then gather and share their experience. This was at that time all done virtually, right? And so that they could remember they weren't alone. Now, as we all know about nurses struggled to care for themselves in the best of times. But during this time, they were extremely exhausted, not only providing very care during difficult times, they were coming home to homeschool their kids and care for their loved ones. So the idea of doing something that would care for their own selves, their own hearts and souls, it felt impossible to engage that. And even some, as nurses do, had a sense of shame that they would even need support. So over time, our work began to evolve into what we offer now at Code U, which is education coupled with reflective well-being practices and meaningful conversation and connection. Essentially, what we learned is that by adding continuing education and sometimes food, like a little gentle bribe, nurses were more likely to pause and care for themselves. What started as something in Phyllis's living room, something grassroots in the time of crisis, has grown as we began to partner with more and more people who want to see healthcare transformed, who want to see nurses, those who care like nurses, receive the care they deserve. And from a holistic perspective, body, mind, and spirit. We do holistic with a W because it means the whole self. So in 2023, we became a nonprofit organization so that we could raise funds and release the financial burden of receiving this type of additional support for nurses. And currently, we offer 39 ANCC accredited hours with a focus on well-being and leadership development.
That's wonderful. Just amazing. How would you describe what you do and who you serve?
So we focused initially on nurses, nurse leaders, but we were able to begin to incorporate, to give continuing ed to counselors and social workers. And we've included a few physicians in a few of our conferences. So those people who in healthcare dedicate their lives to caring for others. And Tamara mentioned that we use the ANCC accredited to offer our continuing ed. And then we also have developed a leadership program they go through after they have completed one of our retreats. And what we find is that it's a place where they can start, as Tamara said, begin to think, oh, I do need to care for myself, because that allows me to serve my patients better, to be able to regain why I went into medicine, nursing, counseling to start with. When we get burned out or we have deep compassion fatigue, you not only don't hear the beeps, you don't hear that refreshment and that purpose in your soul and heart that you went in to do this to begin with. And that is one of the places that we survive as we do our work.
I love the work the two of you do.
Hmm.
So, what outcomes or changes have you seen that you're most proud of?
Good question. And I would say this takes us to where our passion is.
Mm.
So early in our career, we had an opportunity. We were invited to speak to a day of bringing a number of nurses and nurse leaders together when we really were at the edge of pandemic. And there were 435 nurses, leaders from all over. So we weren't really quite prepared for that, but it was a good place for us to begin. But where we really, and our passion lies and where we see change take place is when we have small groups, our one-on-one coaching, our mentoring, our spiritual direction. So when we have these opportunities to work with nurses or counselors or whatever, that's where we see the space that they can reflect, that they exhale, and they try to touch back to why in the world they started in this profession to start with. So we've seen nurses there really rediscover joy in their practice and then become healthier in their boundaries. And then they begin to lead even in their units in a more holistic way. So example of that was early on, we worked with a group of nurse leaders, and this particular nurse had been a nurse in that same hospital for 15 years, which is a pretty good run in all fairness, and over 3 units of step down, so pretty sick patients. And as I began to meet with her some one-on-one after she went through the retreat and used some leadership. One of the things she said I really like is storytelling, which is actually one of my favorite places to go to. And so she'd been doing that in morning gatherings that she would share stories. And then she created a blog where all the nurses could do that. And it began to really raise the passion on the floor and her group and beginning to work together more. And then interestingly, as she was working as a leader, the hospital asked her to let go of her assistant nurse leader. And that was a very big place for her in moral injury and draining. And so when she refused and they were like, well, you have to do something different. So I walked with her in
Mm-hmm.
both spiritual direction and in leadership through that. It was a little transition space there, but she began working and teaching in a nursing school that was connected with the hospital. And man, I watched her passion rise again. It was very powerful, and we still meet. We talk about different things, but it's a joy to see her incorporate some of the practices and things we did in Code U with her young student. Then we're proud of that.
As you should be, yes. How might you support or collaborate with others in the HRC network? What could you offer others?
So we'd be very eager to collaborate in ideas they may have, in opportunities to work with them, in curriculum and in accessing other healthcare professionals. We've just begun a new experience of doing that with a group called Stress Pal, which offers a curriculum specifically for healthcare workers that they can take with them. It's on a Zoom, and they can take with them for 3 months and even longer if they choose. It's a group of activities and way of thinking that they can use in stress. And we're getting ready to start with nursing students where we'll do that with them in a cohort meeting once a month. And that will allow them to talk about what they're experiencing, as well as ideally create a network within their own nursing school there. So we would welcome those opportunities. We welcome an opportunity to co-create training programs, continue and add and facilitate places for reflective spaces for leadership teams and caregivers in transition.
One of the things that we can offer is that we do have well-being courses.
Yes.
That are ANCC accredited and that can be utilized by an organization who is working on their magnet status, specifically the Pathways to Excellence, that new well-being component. So we have been a part of that in the past, and it is something that we're really looking to expand into.
And then the second piece is ask for what you need. What support, connections, or resources might help you move forward?
Yeah, so we need, or we're seeking partners to expand access, I think, like many people are. And for us, this would be through knowing different research collaborations, funding through scholarships or organizational scholarships. We want to make holistic well-being accessible for every nurse, right? So there's a funding need, and we're growing in our understanding of grant writing. We also, and maybe more importantly, value connections to institutions that are interested in piloting our programs or integrating well-being education into their professional development. Really, we just would love to collaborate, give what we can, and I think receive what is available. I think that is our main desire.